The fire crackled, a heart of flame beating at the center of the great room. Its light danced across the faces of my people, my family in all but blood, and for a moment I allowed myself to simply breathe it in. The scent of pine boughs and roasting chestnuts, the low hum of laughter, the clinking of glasses, it was a symphony I had conducted for 35 years. This annual Christmas party was more than a tradition, it was a monument. A testament to the fact that Franklin Williams, with nothing but a dream and two calloused hands, had built something that lasted. I stood by the mantelpiece, my hand resting on the cool marble, and watched them. There was Sarah from accounting, who started as a temp when her own children were in diapers. Now she was dancing with her granddaughter. And old Ben, my first driver, his laugh still a booming thing that could fill a warehouse, telling some exaggerated story to a group of wide-eyed new hires. They were all here. Every line on their faces, every shared joke, was a chapter in the story of Williams Freight. My story. My gaze drifted to the large portrait hanging above the fireplace, a painting commissioned on our 20th anniversary. Eleanor, my beloved Eleanor, smiled down serenely, her eyes holding a secret knowledge of all the years that had led to this moment. She was the foundation. While I was out on the road, sleeping in the cab of that first battered truck, she was the foundation, holding our home together, raising our son. The sacrifices were not mine alone. We had poured everything into this company, into securing a future for Marcus. Every missed school play, every anniversary celebrated with a phone call from a truck stop, every sleepless night worrying about payroll, it was all for this. For the security to stand in a room like this, surrounded by the tangible proof of a life well spent. Penny for your thoughts, Dad. I turned, and there he was, Marcus, my son, the future. He stood with a confidence I still sometimes marveled at, a crystal tumbler of amber whiskey in his hand. He had Eleanor's eyes, but my build, and he wore the tailored suit of a CEO with an ease I never quite mastered. The pride I felt was a physical pressure behind my ribs, so immense it was almost painful. I am just taking it all in, Marcus, I said, my voice a little gruff with the emotion I was fighting back. Look at them. It is easy to forget, in the day-to-day grind of numbers and logistics, that this is what it is all about. These people, their families. Marcus followed my gaze, a faint smile playing on his lips. It is a good turnout, the best one yet, I would say. They deserve it, I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. They have stuck with us through lean years and good. This company is not the trucks or the warehouses, it is them. I know, Dad, he said, his tone soft, almost reverent. He placed a hand on my shoulder. And they know it too. They know they would not be here without you. A short while later, Marcus tapped a spoon against his glass, the clear chime cutting through the festive noise. The room gradually fell into an expectant hush. All eyes turned to him, and then, inevitably, to me. I felt a familiar warmth spread through me, a mixture of embarrassment and deep, deep satisfaction. If I could have everyone's attention for just a moment, Marcus began, his voice carrying easily through the spacious room. He was a natural leader, far better at public speaking than I ever was. I will not keep you from the eggnog for long. I just wanted to say a few words about the man of the hour, my father. He paused, letting his eyes sweep over the crowd, and a genuine smile broke across his face. Most of you know the story. One truck, a lot of nerve, and a work ethic that could put all of us to shame. But what I remember growing up was not the long hours or the stress. I remember the unwavering belief he had in people. I remember him telling me that a business is only as strong as the team that builds it. He built this company, Williams Freight, on that principle. And looking around this room tonight, at all of you who have been part of this journey for 10, 20, 30 years, I would say his principle was correct. A ripple of applause and agreement went through the crowd. I saw Sarah dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. Ben was nodding vigorously, his expression solemn. He sacrificed everything for this family, Marcus continued, his voice dropping, becoming more personal, more intimate. He dedicated his life to providing a legacy, for me, for all of us. And so, on behalf of my mother, who I know is watching from somewhere with a proud smile, and on behalf of everyone here, I just want to say, thank you, Dad, for everything. The applause was thunderous this time. It was a wave of sound that washed over me, and for a moment I was speechless. My throat tightened. I could only nod, raising my own glass in a silent toast to my son, to my employees, to the ghost of my wife who I felt so keenly in that moment. This was the pinnacle. This feeling of completion, of a circle closing. This was the reward for all those years of struggle. As the applause subsided and the conversations started up again, I noticed a subtle shift in the room. Marcus was moving through the crowd, but he was not alone. His assistant, a quiet young woman named Chloe, was following him, a large, elegant envelope in her hands. As Marcus shook a hand or clapped a back, Chloe would discreetly hand an envelope to the employee. A slow smile spread across my face. The holiday bonuses. I had authorized them myself last week, modest but meaningful. A token of our gratitude, a share of the year's success. Seeing them being distributed, seeing the looks of pleased surprise on people's faces, filled me with another swell of that paternal pride. This was how it should be. This was the culture Alina and I had wanted to create. I watched as Ben received his envelope, his large, work-roughened hands taking it with a nod of gratitude. I saw Sarah hug Chloe after getting hers. They moved from group to group, a well-rehearsed team, Marcus the charismatic frontman, Chloe the efficient executor. I felt a profound sense of peace. The legacy was secure. Marcus understood. He was not just continuing the business, he was honoring its soul. After making a full circuit of the room, Marcus and Chloe converged near the bar. The large stack of envelopes was gone. Everyone had been taken care of. I decided to go over to make a small joke about the efficiency of the operation. "A well-oiled machine, you two," I said, approaching them. Marcus turned, and for a fraction of a second I saw something flicker in his eyes, something quick, unreadable, before his easy smile returned. "Just taking care of our people, Dad." "As it should be," I said, clapping him on the back. I looked between him and Chloe. "And where is mine? Do I not get a bonus this year?" I chuckled, expecting them to join in. Chloe's face went pale. Her eyes darted immediately to Marcus, a look of pure panic in them. It was so sudden, so stark, that my chuckle died in my throat. Marcus's smile did not waver, but it became fixed, a little tight around the edges. He placed a hand on my arm, his grip was firm. "Do not be silly, Dad. It is different. Special. I have it in my study. We can take care of it later. No need for formalities tonight." His words were smooth, logical. Of course my bonus would be different. I was the founder, the owner, but the explanation did not quite land. It felt prepared. And Chloe's reaction, that flash of sheer alarm, lingered in my mind like a ghost. "Of course," I said, forcing a nod. "Later is fine, no rush at all." Marcus squeezed my arm, his smile relaxing back into its natural ease. "Good. Now go enjoy your party, you have earned it." He moved away, Chloe scurrying after him with one last, nervous glance in my direction. I stood there, amidst the laughter and the music and the clinking glasses, but the perfect harmony of the evening had been disrupted. A single, discordant note had been struck. It was a small thing, an oversight, a simple misunderstanding, I was sure. Yet as I looked around the room at the faces of my loyal employees, each holding their crisp, white envelope, I felt a peculiar and unsettling distance open up between us. The foundation felt solid beneath my feet, but for the first time all night, I wondered about the facade. The morning sun, a pale and forgiving gold, filtered through the blinds of my home office, painting warm stripes across the mahogany of the desk my father built. It was the kind of quiet, orderly morning I craved, the kind that followed a day of hard, honest work. I was savoring the last of my coffee, the rich aroma of familiar comfort, when my phone vibrated against the wood, breaking the silence. The screen lit up with the name Big Mike. A smile touched my lips. Mike was not a man for casual morning chats. He was likely already at the yard, his voice a permanent gravelly echo among the steel beams and lumber piles. I swiped to answer. "Mike, you are calling to tell me the Thompson delivery is early for once, I hope." What came back was not his usual booming baritone. It was a choked, wet sound, followed by a thick silence. My smile vanished. "Mike, are you there? Is everything all right?" "Frank," his voice cracked on the single syllable. He cleared his throat, a rough, painful sound. "Frank, I do not even know what to say." A cold knot tightened in my stomach. "Mike, talk to me. What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong." He let out a shaky breath that was half a sob. "Everything is right, more than right. Frank, that bonus, my God, Frank." Bonus? We had given out the annual bonuses just last month. They were fair, a little larger than usual thanks to a good year, but nothing that would warrant this kind of emotion from a man who had faced down a collapsed scaffolding without blinking. "Mike, what bonus are you talking about?" "The one that hit our account this morning," he said, his voice gaining a sliver of its usual strength, buoyed by disbelief. "Frank, it is life-changing. It is mortgage-paying. It is send my kid to college without loans kind of money. Me and Carol, we sat at the kitchen table and we cried. We have been carrying that mortgage for 23 years. Frank, you have just lifted a mountain off our backs." The coffee in my stomach turned to acid. My mind raced, scrambling for a logical foothold. There was no bonus. There was no mountain-lifting sum of money in the accounts to be dispersed. I would have known. I would have authorized it. "Mike," I said, my voice carefully neutral, a calm I did not feel. I am very happy for you, but there must be some mistake. Can you check the amount again, precisely?" "No mistake, Frank," he said, a laugh bubbling through the emotion. $150,000, 150,000. I counted the zeros 5 times. I thought it was a typo, but it is there. It is real, and I am not the only one. I just got off the phone with young Pete in drafting, his was the same. Frank, you have blessed this entire company. $150,000 per employee. The numbers detonated in my head. We had 47 full-time employees. The math was simple, horrifying, and catastrophic. That was over $7 million. Our operating capital for the next 6 months was barely $8 million. The blood drained from my face, leaving a cold, prickling numbness in its wake. "Mike," I managed, the word a dry croak. I need to check something on my end. I will call you back." "You take your time, Frank. You have given us all the time in the world. Thank you from the bottom of my heart." The line went dead. My hand trembled as I set the phone down. The warm stripes of sunlight now felt accusatory, highlighting the dust motes dancing in a world that had just tilted off its axis. I lunged for my laptop, my fingers clumsy on the keys as I logged into the company's banking portal. The screen loaded with agonizing slowness. The first page showed our primary business checking account. The balance, which should have been a healthy, reassuring number, was a pittance. A few $1,000s. Enough for a week's payroll, maybe. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I navigated to the transaction history. And there it was. A single, massive, outgoing wire transfer from yesterday afternoon, authorized by Marcus A. Brennan, my son. It had cleared this morning, draining the account to a dangerous low. But that was not all of it. The amount Mike quoted was larger than what had been in that account. My eyes, wide with dawning horror, scanned down. Another transaction, simultaneous to the first. A draw on a line of credit. A line of credit I did not know existed. Marcus had opened it, leveraging the company, our family's legacy, without my knowledge. He had combined our operational funds with borrowed money to fund this insanity. I felt a pressure building in my chest, a physical pain that radiated down my arm. This was not a mistake. This was a calculated act, a lie unwrapping itself in the bright, honest light of morning. I stood up so fast my chair screeched back and toppled over with a crash that echoed in the silent house. I did not stop to write it. I grabbed my keys and stormed out the door, my heart hammering a frantic, terrified rhythm against my ribs. The drive to the office was a blur of angry horn blasts and screeching tires. I did not see the other cars. I saw only the numbers, the devastating math, the betrayal. I parked haphazardly and slammed the car door, marching through the front entrance of Brennan & Son. The receptionist, Sarah, looked up with a bright, tearful smile. "Oh, Mr. Brennan, is it not wonderful?" I did not answer. I strode past her, down the hall to Marcus's office. His door was open. He was standing by the window, looking out at the yard below, a satisfied expression on his face. He turned as I entered, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Dad, I thought you were working from home this morning." I shut the door behind me with a firm, controlled click. The air in the room was thick, charged. "What have you done, Marcus?" His smile tightened. "What do you mean? I am looking at a workforce that is now the most loyal in the entire state, probably the country." "Loyal?" The word exploded from me. "You have bankrupted us. You drained our operating account. You opened a secret line of credit. Do you have any idea what you have done? Those bonuses are unsustainable. They will destroy this company." Marcus sighed, as if I were a slow child failing to grasp a simple concept. He walked around to his side of the desk, a large, modern thing of glass and steel that had replaced my father's solid oak. It is not destruction, Dad. It is a strategic investment. In the future. What future? There is no future without capital to purchase materials, to pay bills. We have contracts, Marcus. Obligations. Which will be honored, he said, his voice dropping, becoming colder, more precise. By the new owners. The words hung in the air between us, sucking all the sound from the room. I could hear the blood pounding in my ears. New owners. I have entered into an agreement, he said, his gaze steady, unwavering. A letter of intent, to sell Brennan and Son. All assets, all contracts, to National Builders Consolidated. The name was a punch to the gut. A corporate chain, a soulless entity known for swallowing family firms, stripping them for parts and discarding the carcass. I felt the floor lurch beneath my feet. I had to grip the back of the visitor's chair to steady myself. You cannot do that. I can, he replied, and there was a finality in his tone that was more terrifying than any outburst. I have the authority, and I have done it. The bonuses were not a gift, Dad. They were a down payment. They were to ensure that when I make the announcement, the employees see me as their savior, not as the son of the man who held them back. They will support the transition. They will support me. The pieces snapped into place with a cruel, logical clarity. The lie was not just about the money. It was about everything. You did this to force me out, I whispered, the truth a shard of ice in my heart. This was your plan all along. To win their loyalty so you could push me into retirement and sell my father's life work to some conglomerate. It is not your father's world anymore. The cold facade cracked, revealing a flash of the bitterness I had always feared simmered beneath the surface. This business, this legacy, it is a burden. It has been a chain around my ankle my entire life. A life I never wanted. Did you ever ask me what I wanted, Frank? Or did you just assume I would be happy to spend my days smelling of sawdust and sweat, living in your shadow? The question, so long unspoken, laid bare the chasm between us. I looked at my son, at the man he had become, and I saw a stranger. I built this for you, I said, my voice thick with an anguish I could no longer contain. Everything I did was for you. Well, I do not want it, he spat, the venom startling in its intensity. And that is why you received nothing, the bonus. I issued one to every single employee, but not to you. He leaned forward, planting his hands on the glass desk. Do you know why? Because the bonus was for the future. And you, Dad, you are the past. The words did not just feel like a rejection. They felt like an erasure. 40 years of my life, the calluses on my hands, the early mornings and late nights, the pride in seeing my name next to my father's on the sign outside, all reduced to being the past. Something to be discarded. I stared at him, at the hard set of his jaw, the cold certainty in his eyes, and I could find no trace of the little boy who used to follow me around the yard, a tiny hard hat perched on his head. That boy was gone. He had been replaced by this calculating, resentful man. I turned without another word. I walked out of his office, down the hall, through the reception area where the happy chatter of employees now sounded like a cruel mockery. I made it to my car, my body moving on autopilot. I sat behind the wheel, my hands gripping it so tightly my knuckles turned white. I looked up at the building I loved, the sign I had been so proud of, and I saw it for what it now was. A hollow shell, a trophy waiting to be handed to a corporation that would scrap the name and fire the people who made it mean something. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep into my bones, that I could not let that happen. The fight was not over. It had only just begun. But as I started the engine, a terrifying thought echoed in the silence he had left inside me. If my own son could do this, what else was he capable of? The silence in my study was a physical presence, thick and heavy as the old mahogany desk that had been the anchor of my career. On one side of the polished wood sat the lawsuit, a thick stack of papers bound in a blue folder. My attorney, a sharp man named Peterson, had delivered it that morning. Its title was a cold, brutal declaration, Petition for Control of Lockhart and Son, Inc. There was no and Son on those papers. It was just Marcus Lockhart against Frank Lockhart, my own name, weaponized. On the other side of the desk was a single sheet, a letter of resignation and transfer of my controlling shares. It was blank except for the company letterhead, a stark reminder of everything I had built. The brass lamp cast a warm, yellow glow over the two documents, illuminating the two paths that splintered from this moment. One led to war, the other to surrender. I looked at the lawsuit. I could see the headlines, the whispers on the factory floor, the panic in the eyes of the men and women who had trusted me for 40 years. A legal battle would be a firestorm. It would consume the company's coffers, shred its reputation, and leave nothing but ashes for the victor to inherit. Marcus, in his righteous fury, did not see that. He saw only the prize, the crown he believed was his by right. He did not see that the throne would be rubble. The door creaked open, and Cynthia entered, carrying 2 mugs of steaming tea. She did not speak. She did not need to. She had been a silent pillar through the long, terrible days since the confrontation. She placed a mug before me, her hand resting on my shoulder. The simple weight of it was the only comfort I could find. "Peterson says we have a strong case," I said, my voice rough from disuse. "He says Marcus's actions, the secret negotiations, could be construed as a breach of fiduciary duty. We could tie him up in court for years." Cynthia's gaze was not on the legal document, but on the blank sheet. "And what would be left of Lockhart and Son after those years, Frank? What would be left of this family?" "It is my life's work," I whispered, the words tasting like ash. "It is the legacy I built for him, for all of us." "Is it?" she asked softly, her eyes meeting mine. They were the same clear blue they had been when we married, but now they held a universe of shared history and quiet strength. "A legacy is not a building or a bank balance. A legacy is what you teach your children. It is the mark you leave on their character. If you fight him, you will teach him that power is the only thing that matters. You will confirm every cynical thought he has." I slumped forward, my head in my hands. The fight had gone out of me, replaced by a hollow, aching fatigue. She was right. I had groomed Marcus to be a businessman, a strategist, a winner. I had not groomed him to be a man of honor. That failure was mine. A war would not correct it, it would only complete it. "If I sign this," I said, tapping the blank page, "I am handing him everything. I am rewarding his betrayal." "No," Cynthia said, her voice firm. "You are choosing a different kind of victory. You are choosing peace. You are choosing us. Let him have the company, Frank, but do not let him have it with a lie. Make him tell the truth." I looked up at her. The truth. About the sale. About where the money for those bonuses truly came from. The employees deserve that. And Marcus needs to say it. He needs to stand in front of the people he hopes to lead and acknowledge the foundation he tried to bulldoze. A spark, the first in weeks, flickered in the darkness of my spirit. It was not a weapon of destruction, but a tool of accountability. It was a condition that could salvage a shred of honor from this wreckage. I picked up my pen. It felt heavier than any tool I had ever held. I uncapped it, the click echoing in the silent room, and began to write my surrender. Each word was a small death, but with each stroke, a weight began to lift from my shoulders. The weight of the company, the weight of the expectation, the weight of a future I had meticulously planned, and which had now crumbled to dust. The transfer was swift, anticlimactic. A meeting in a lawyer's office, the exchange of documents. Marcus could not hide his triumph, though he tried to temper it with a solemn mask. He thought he had won. When I presented my single condition, his face tightened. He argued, of course. He called it a needless humiliation. But I held firm. It was the last piece of leverage I would ever wield, and I wielded it not for myself, but for the truth. He finally agreed, his jaw clenched. He did not understand. He saw it as a final, petty power play from a defeated old man. He did not see it as a lesson. New Year's Eve arrived, cold and clear. The gathering at our house was somber, a far cry from the boisterous parties of years past. A few close friends, a scattering of relatives. The air was thick with unspoken questions. I stood by the grand fireplace, a glass of whiskey in my hand, watching the flames dance. I felt a presence beside me and looked down to see Elijah, my 10-year-old grandson. He did not say anything. He just leaned against my leg, a small, warm weight of pure acceptance. He had heard the arguments, felt the tension. But his eyes, when they looked up at me, held no judgment, only a quiet, profound understanding that his grandfather was hurting. At midnight, as scattered cheers rose from the television and fireworks bloomed silently over the city skyline beyond our windows, there was no celebration in my heart. Instead, there was a strange, burgeoning peace. The company was gone. The title of CEO was gone, but I was still here. Cynthia's hand found mine, her grip strong and sure. I looked at Elijah, who was watching the lights with a thoughtful expression. The closure did not come from winning. It came from the realization that I had chosen the right battlefield. I had chosen my wife's peace over a war of attrition. I had chosen my family's fragile unity over a hollow victory. The real legacy was not a corporation. It was the resilience to walk away with your head high and the honor to know why you are walking. Later, as the guests departed, Elijah lingered. "Grandpa," he said, his voice small in the quieting house, "will you still tell me stories about the factory, about how you started it?" I looked at him, at the earnest curiosity in his face, so different from his father's ambitious glare. In that moment, the emptiness inside me filled with a new, different purpose. It was quieter, smaller, but infinitely more valuable. "I will, Elijah," I said, my voice thick with an emotion I could not name. "I will tell you all the stories, not just about the successes, but about the mistakes too, the important ones." He nodded, a serious, little man nod, and then he reached into his pocket. "I made this for you." He pressed a small, clumsily carved wooden bird into my hand. It was rough, the wings uneven, but it was made with heartbreaking sincerity. "It is an eagle, like on the company logo." I closed my fingers around the little carving, its rough edges pressing into my palm. It was the most valuable asset I now possessed. The future was an uncharted road, but as I held that small, carved promise in my hand, I knew I would not be walking it alone. And I knew my work was not, after all, finished. It had simply changed its form. The question was, what story would I tell him first?